Welcome everybody, RC here for Photography Tips and Tricks Product Snapshot. It's a first look, exclusive first look at the new Nikon D810. Now, let's get and talk to you a little bit about the Nikon camera, right? Where we were and now where we're going with this. So the venerable D800, right? It's a 36 megapixel camera, has amazing image quality, right? Really, really sharp. And it came with two different types of models. So it came with a D800 and then it came with a D800E. The D800E was a camera that had yet even more detail because they did some canceling out onto the anti-aliasing of it, right? So it had something that was called a low pass filter, right? And then they would just cancel the effect out and you would get even more detail. Now, let's move over to the D810. It's almost kind of like they took in the best features out of the two cameras and then added even more features to a great DSLR. Now, let's go ahead and just kind of give this the unboxing treatment here. Cut this open here, cut this open here. Hopefully I don't cut myself on air. Safety first, people. So we'll go ahead and just open this up here. Now, some bubble. I'm assuming this is gonna be fine. Fine. So, thank you so much. First, before we do anything else, thank you so much to Nikon Professional Services and Nikon USA for providing the camera. This is something that we want to be able to provide you here on Kelbyone. Is as soon as these things come out, we want to be able to give you a first look and inform you as best we can as to why a camera like this would be something that you would want to consider. So this is the D810. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful camera so far. It feels nice, right? Nice to the touch. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna set this down. I think, oh, it's got a battery in it already. So we'll go ahead and we'll outfit this with a lens. The lens that I'm gonna use for this is the 35-1.4. Now, the reason that I'm choosing to just put this lens on it for now is because this camera also has a great feature set for people that are doing HD video. So I think it's gonna be something that you can use on the video side. It's definitely going to be something that you can use on landscapes and portraits and studios and things like that. So let's do a tail of the tape. It's a 36.3 full frame CMOS sensor and it's got no anti-aliasing filter. Big difference. On the D800, it had it. On the D800E, it had it and it canceled out. Here, it's not here at all. So that I think is really good. It also has an ISO of 64 to 12.8, so 64 to 12,800, and that can be expanded to 32 to 51.2. Now, one of the things that I've seen with people using this camera so far is that they've said that the noise handling is really good at much higher ISOs. Important to note about the D810 is that the ISO 64 is a native ISO. A lot of the times when you're working with cameras that go into lower and lower and lower ISOs, what they'll do is they say, it's not really a true ISO, it's a low enough ISO, but you're gonna sacrifice on highlight details or something is gonna be sacrificed with those lower ISOs. So 64 is a native one. So that means that you could shoot really, really slow. You could shoot with virtually no grain inside of the shot natively. You can expand that by using an ISO of 32, but that 32 is going to compromise a little bit of detail inside of the image. Now, the second thing that you want to be able to see with this is, let's go back to the D800. Right? The D800 has a mirror mechanism and a shutter mechanism that a lot of the times people would say they considered it a little kind of loud. Now, I thought it was okay, but let's just do a comparison test. I'm going to hold this really close here so that you can kind of hear it. We'll pull this off. Right? It caused a couple of different problems. First off, you can feel it a little bit in your hands, which I thought was okay, but for anybody who's doing really, really slow, long exposures, that mirror banging would cause a little bit of vibration. Noise being the second problem. So what they've done here is they've created an electronic first curtain shutter, so that eliminates the entire first movement of the mirror, which I think is good, and they've redesigned the mirror mechanism so that it's a little bit quieter. How much quieter? Let's check it out. We'll go ahead and we'll focus. You definitely don't feel it as much. Let's try this. It's a little lower. It's a little lower, and it definitely doesn't feel, you don't feel the vibration so much in the hand. So I think that that's something that's really good. So improvement over the D800. Now, The other thing that people had considerations with or had to contend with when you were working with a camera of this size, 36 megapixels, is that the raw file was very big. Obviously, there's a lot of data. So it was good for people to shoot, but then there was a subset of individuals who would say, I'd want all of that detail, but I would like it if that camera was a little bit smaller in file size. So they've created something called a RAW size S, which gives you a 9 megapixel RAW mode. I think that that's pretty good. It's got a built-in X-Speed 4 engine, which is supposed to be 30% faster and more efficient with working with stuff. It has a maximum shooting of about 5 frames per second when you're shooting in an FX mode, 7 frames per second if you're shooting in DX mode, and then it's even further when you add a battery grip like an EL18, I think it's the 18, EL18, and or AA batteries. Now, it also has a 3.2-inch 1229K RGBW LCD screen with customizable color. What does that mean? Well, it means that the screen that you're looking at right now has an addition of white pixels, and they've added white pixels so that you can kind of see a little bit more contrast. So it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks here on the show how well that does. It has an OLED viewfinder for an info display. It's also got improved scene recognition. It has face detection in the optical viewfinder mode and a split screen zoom, which is available on live view, which kind of helps adjust lines, a little bit more accurately, I'd say. Now, one of the things that they borrowed from the D4S was they borrowed a 51-point autofocus system with a group AF. That is something that's really cool. Think of it this way. You're out and you're trying to shoot and you're doing something and you grab one of the focus dots that you see on the screen and you put it on the subject and you try to shoot something and the subject is kind of really, really close to the background and the camera's like, well, is that the part that you focus on or is that the part that I don't know. The camera does pretty good already, but by adding group AF, what that does is it says, I'm gonna take a series of dots in that range and I'm going to work them together. That way, when you're looking at a subject in the background, you've got multiple dots working, multiple dots calculating, and it's supposed to give you a much better option for focusing. I'm interested in that kind of stuff. Now, the other thing that they've added to this is they've added a flat picture control. Now, this isn't necessarily something that you would use probably in portraits or studios, but it's definitely a boon for people that are doing videography. If you're doing video, you want to be able to have all of that stuff flat so that you can grade it a little bit later. Now, what else can you do here? Something that I think is a boon for video people is auto ISO for video. When you're shooting inside a video, let's take it to some basics in video. There are some general things that you kind of keep fixed, right? You keep your aperture fixed. You keep your shutter fixed. That's good because you want to be able to control that scene, the light on that scene. What isn't fixed? Sometimes the lighting around you. So sun goes into a cloud, day turns into night, night turns into day. How do you compensate without having to mess with the dials there? So what Nikon's done is they've created the auto ISO, which is supposed to gradually increase and decrease that ISO for you to keep all of the other settings constant. So if you take that, you combine that with low, high ISO, now that's a little bit expanded, and better handling of ISO, that should make it a lot better for individuals that are shooting video in more challenging conditions because now it's one less thing for them to worry about. You also have zebras and peaking for checking focus and exposure in video mode. You also have uncompressed HDMI output with simultaneous recording right to a memory card. So that part I think is great. They've added a lot of feature sets, and on top of that, a built-in stereo microphone. So it's a camera that is set to really do some work in the video space. It's got some phenomenal detail on the photography space. They've augmented it even further with native ISO at 64. They've got no low pass filter on it. I think this is going to be a great camera to consider when you want great detail and you want great video. Now, I'll take this out and I'm going to do a couple of sample pictures so that you guys can take a look for yourself and see the quality of the images themselves. But if you want to see more information on this, make sure you take a look at the Nikon USA site. They'll have anything that you need for the brand new Nikon D810. Now, make sure that you tune back here at Photography Tips and Tricks. We'll definitely have more images and more features about this groundbreaking camera from Nikon. My name's RC, and I'll see you guys soon.